What's up, everybody? I am Eric Kaiser. This is Kaiser's Quest, and this is going to be my book series called Damaged Goods. Pretty much a book I've been talking about writing since my 20s, early on in my 20s, when I really started examining my life early on and kind of knowing that I wasn't going to have an easy story. And I don't know how I knew that back then, but I just knew it, you know. I kind of knew what I was already wrapped up in at 14. I kind of knew the feeling I enjoyed from drinking alcohol and being a socialite and just being wild and crazy and free, I guess. And you know, as I go into this story, I'm not going to write anything down. I'm just going to come out here every single day and see what comes out. And, you know, I might have to backtrack when it comes down to writing the book, but I'm going to start out from, you know, the earliest I can remember and kind of fly through that stuff to the stuff that people want to hear about, right? Like, what is it like to grow up from 21 till basically when I quit drinking? Don't get me wrong, I had some spells of years in there where I chilled out and, you know, didn't go as hard, and I got out of the club scene for a little while and did the house party scene for a little while. But I literally went really hard from 21 to about 30, took a little break, moved to Florida, did really good in business because I stepped away from that Jersey bubble that kept me. We'll get into that stuff later. Like, certain areas that you live in might certainly have a certain vibration about the area, and I learned all that from my awakening process. But it just seemed like every time I went back anywhere near New Jersey, it brought me back down to the same vibration, and that was the party animal. You know, I went to Florida and I got a lot of success, and the second I went back to Jersey, I went back to being the same as that guy I was. But the second time I went back in my 30s, it was right around the time of the MySpace takeoff, and I learned quickly that, you know, you could kind of be a personality, and I could take the social skill that I had of being in the nightclub without all this cool little technology stuff now, and I could really start networking with people and bringing stuff together. So during the economic crash back then with Obama, all the clubs were kind of going low and dry, so I came up with just a kind of pompous Ponzi scheme of entertainment company that I learned I could drink for free, and I could drink a lot. So I welcome you. You know, I don't know how long this will take, but I'm going to keep doing it all the way up to present day. And then I'm going to try to hire somebody to crank it out and send it to a publisher. But basically, I'm Eric Kaiser. You know, I was born in 1975, August 17th, and I wish I could tell you what time it was, but see, when you live a life like I did, you really didn't pay attention to them things, right? And what happened in my life quickly and early on in life, at 4 years old, I lost my older brother, Joe Kaiser, Joseph, Joey as we called him. You know, I'm not going to go too deep into what happened, but he basically moved to Florida when he was 18, and he got ran over by what I was told for many years was a drunk driver, and it ended up being a biker who pretty much just took my brother off the planet. And, you know, he only got 6 months in jail for that. Maybe that's the reason why my process went the way it went. I don't know. But I basically grew up with a alcoholic father, Joseph Kaiser. My mom was Mary Jane Kaiser. Not a very happy woman, but very stern and very loving when it came down to her children. I have two sisters, Dawn Kaiser, 5 years older than me, So Dawn is what, 48 now? And Sandy is 10 years older than me, so she's 53. And like all siblings, we're all so much different. And it's, it's none of our faults now. And it took me decades to realize that, me and my sister still have a lot of head smacking going on. And not necessarily my sister Dawn, but me and my sister Sandy have always smacked heads. And I don't think she realized it. I never felt loved by her. I felt like she didn't like me growing up. And that was a crappy feeling, to be a younger brother and just feel that way, especially. And she won't look at these things as adults, but there was times where she was in need and I jumped like a brother should, and got her out of her house and out of a bad situation into my mom's house, which she never left, and she still lives there. And that's the reason why we bump heads to this day. She wants to talk about me to everybody and talk about my shortcomings and always focus on the bad stuff I did in life, and never really look at that even though I was the way I was, I still had a huge heart. So this is just going to be the overview of what's to come, right? Basically, I was a kid that grew up like every other kid, right? We all grew up in a time, I grew up in the 80s, right? So by 1980, I was already 5 years old. Now, can I access memories from all the way back at 5? Yeah, but, nobody wants to hear about the 5-year-old memories, right? Y'all want to hear about when things got really interesting. So I'll probably go back and touch base with whoever decides to write for me and fill in the early years so young kids can kind of have a version of this, of what not to fall into in life. Because basically, we're pre-programmed as kids, at least back then. I don't know how it is for kids now. I don't think adults really realize that either. We look at it like it was the way we were as kids, and nothing is the same. So you have to adjust your mind to that type of process, right? Because we don't know what they're going through. And if you're not seriously talking to your kids and getting to know your kids, which I know a lot of parents don't, right? We stick our kids in school and we think the school system's supposed to raise great people. The school system don't raise your kids, people. And I don't think too many of us realize that. But anyway, I was like any other kid. I was competitive as crap because at an early age, I got taught to be competitive as soon as T-ball started. I found out that every kid wanted to be the best, and the more you strive to be better, the more pats on your back you got and the nicknames that you got for baseball, and you got recognition, and it felt good to be the better player, even though that's crappy. And if I was a coach to this day, which I will get back into, I would teach kids to have fun. That's it. That's their childhood. Why are we making it so competitive? They're playing a sport to have fun. It shouldn't matter who the heck wins or loses. And this is an athlete saying that. I was competitive as shit, and I was good at everything I wanted to be good at, whether it was bowling or hockey or baseball or football out in the street, or no matter what, riding bikes. I had to give my 100% effort, and that intimidated a lot of kids. And a lot of kids didn't like me growing up. And, I didn't have it all that easy as a young kid. I got picked on a lot because I actually had a stutter, because I couldn't hear in school as a kid. I was deaf, and that sucked to start out life that way, to be picked on all the time. But I found out early on what it felt like, and kind of went through a school change early on in life. I went to Catholic school up until 3rd grade, and then I got switched to public school because I started acting out already. And, by that age, I would think my parents would have kind of stopped and looked at the situation. Maybe, it never happened, but I kind of wish I had a dad like me who could step out and say, all right, you did this long enough. You had your fun. It's time to take life serious, and it's time to raise these people the best you can, right? that's what happened to me in my life. I got to a point where I really had to hit the brakes and realize what a POS I had become, because I let my brain get overrun by stress and anxiety and depression, things that I didn't run on for a long time. Even when I was getting in trouble as an adult, I always ran on good times. So my life always kind of equaled pretty good results that I wanted to equal. Now, I did live with a lot of pain and misery because of, this anxiety and stress. And, that's what I lived with the most. And it was really, really hard. So let's get to it, right? I had the dad who would come to the baseball games, intoxicated and things like that. So I had a lot of embarrassing moments early on in life to deal with alcohol. But since he was so driven to it, it really caught my appeal. It caught my friends' appeals. So it really caught all our appeal at a young age that we wanted to be doing what all the adults were doing, because our parents used to all get together and party and have barbecues and this, go drinking here, go drinking there. Everything still to this day feels like it was wrapped around drinking. All of our parents seem like they were. Now, some of the parents really didn't get blasted. My mom wasn't a drinker. She might have had a drink here or there, but she hated alcohol. So, as young kids already, probably 11, 12, 13 years old, me and my friends, Robert McElroy, what up, dog? Eric Flickinger, what up, dog? Us three had already started dabbling and taking sips of this and that at barbecues, getting to the point of intoxication where we'd have to puke. I remember one time with a beer ball at Flick's house that, God, man, do you remember that? Puked like a freight train. I think both of us did. We were young. We were like 13. But, that's when it started kicking off, 13, 14 years old. And then, we all go to high school, right? And those years, boy, were they some friggin' years. I don't know how I made it through those years alive, God, I don't think people understand. Even before 17, before driving, I was drinking every weekend. Every single weekend. I'd ride my bike till I found somebody in my town that would buy me beer. And then, I started adapting to the older personalities, like Harry McKnight, what's up, dog? I hope everything's good. And, people like Jay Jones and, the cliques that we made throughout the years, Matt Hunt, Chris Hunt, Tom, we all began this just Shane Pitcher and Mike Doherty and Jesus, the things that you forget, right? Like Mike Doherty, he was my closest boy. I would have fucking died for that kid in a second, right? We had a brotherhood, and our lives took us in different directions, and I'm going to definitely get back at him and get that friendship back, because he's one of the guys who can validate a lot of the stories that I'm going to tell that are true, that you would think, oh, hell no, man, that didn't happen, but yeah, it did. And so anyway, I was going through the same thing all kids are going through. We all want to fit in. And, in my town, I grew up in a rough town. There's a lot of roughnecks. You had to know how to fight, or at least you thought you did, because that's the vibe it put off in that town. So early on in life, I already started, having to throw hands and getting myself in situations to prepare myself for becoming a man, going to high school. Because I'll be honest with you, a lot of people don't know this. I never really liked to fight. Really didn't like the way it made me feel on the inside. Anything about it I didn't like. But I learned early on, most people don't want to fight. So if you're the one with the nuts to press the issue of, I will fight, most of the times the other guy will just screw it, This just ain't worth it. And I wasn't a big dude when I was young. I was small. I got picked on a lot. But unlike most people who get picked on, I didn't let it get me down. I used it to my advantage, right? I used it as a tool as I got older to feed a fire. And that fire was, I was revengeful, right? Anybody who screwed with me, my friends, anything in high school, I pretty much paid them back. Like, honestly, like I got them back. One guy I straight knocked out by punching him in the forehead and I blew his forehead to pieces. And he was just a bully. He was a guy who picked on everybody. And he tried to pick on me, and he found out the hard way, you know? Because by that time, I had some muscle stacked on my ass, and I knew how to throw hands by that age. But I'm not going to jump around anymore starting tomorrow. When I start the story tomorrow, I'm just going to start from drinking right away, probably at, I'm going to start probably 9th grade of high school. And try to go through 9th grade as well as I can, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. Try to make everybody understand where my mindset was going. So if you see your kids behaving the same way with maybe the same mindset, maybe in your family you got the same situation going on, and one parent is drinking every day and the other one's not, then I hope that this gets to you and you realize that you need to get you and your kids out of that situation, because you can alter their whole entire life, right? I do not regret one part about my life because it created who I am today. It has made me strong enough to want to share my message of what I went through in my life. And it has made me want to live a life of service and really give back to society. Because when you do something like party for 23 years of your life, you meet a lot of people. And normally you would think that you wouldn't remember very much, but I have to stress this a lot. I was never an alcoholic, like where somebody would look at me and say, that dude's an alcoholic. I was a social alcoholic. There's a big difference. I was the guy who wanted to go out to the nightclub. I was the guy that wanted to party with a group of people. I was not the guy who would sit at home and drink alone or had to drink. So that's what I want to really stress. It is so freaking dangerous, because there's millions of me out there, and there's millions of me out there right now, even at 14, going out binge drinking with their buddies, and the parents just don't know, because you just don't know, right? And I want parents to understand that it's not your fault at the end of the day if something bad happens to your kid because of alcohol, but if you pay closer attention, you might pick up on some telltale signs, especially after listening to this story. A lot of parents, a lot of people, I experienced it when I went to Tennessee and did an Airbnb. The lady knew her young nieces and shit were getting trashed. And she really didn't seem concerned, but if that was a plate of cocaine, she would have lost her mind. And that's asinine, because I'll be honest with you, when it comes down to those drugs, what I learned in my life, that most people will just dabble with that crap and put it back down. Maybe 10%, if that, will actually keep doing it. Now, when you introduce alcohol into a kid's life, 95% of kids who start drinking alcohol before the legal age pretty much keep drinking. Because you learn very early on in life to how to use alcohol as a social tool, and then you think you need it all the time to operate on that level. Like me, for instance. I had myself convinced I could pick up girls better if I was intoxicated. And maybe there was a little bit of truth to that, because it opened me up and made me a little bit relaxed. And but that's what I would do, that was my thing. Alcohol was the creator of Kaiser, right? And for people who know me, know I went by Kaiser my whole entire life. And I'm actually thinking about just changing my whole entire name. It's almost a part of an awakening. A lot of people do it. I kind of want to let go of the past, and I want to let go of the Kaiser, He was a prick. He was I can't apologize enough to people in my life. Like, I literally, if everything goes as planned in my life, where I know it's going, a part of my act of service and saying sorry to a lot of people would just step out and try to help them any which way I can, whether it's financially, emotionally, any which way I can. Step out, find the people in my past that I might have hurt, and really change their life. So I hope everybody enjoys this book, VOOK. I hope I'm the first one doing this, but it's going to get interesting. And tomorrow it starts. No more jibber jabber. It's going down. Love you.